A viral video, a bold claim, and possibly a huge lawsuit. Oh my gosh, you guys, what is going on? Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead, where today you and I are going to go deep. We are going to put on tinfoil caps. We're going to take them off. We're going to look at things. We're going to discuss it. And you and I are going to try to figure out what is going on. So, welcome back, friends and family of the internet and fellow watchers on the wall. Everyone has heard about what is going on with the Minnesota daycares. We've heard about the fraud. We've heard about DHS stopping all daycare payments to American families who need it. We've heard so much, but what is the truth? The truth is, if you accuse a business of running a scam on camera, and that business says that you misrepresented it, you were recklessly ignoring obvious facts, or that some of it was staged, you could be sued. So let me tell you what's going on, and let me make this disclaimer. I once followed Nick Shirley when he only had 50,000, 100,000 subscribers. I thought the kid was doing great stuff. I am now seriously worried about this child, and for very obvious reasons. He's at the same age as my young adults. Young adults can be reckless. They're easy to manipulate. This boy looks like he hasn't slept. He has bags under his eyes, and he keeps saying, "What can they come after me for? What God, they've got nothing on me." But they do, Nick. They do have something on you. And I am concerned that a Charlie Kirk is going to happen to Nick Shirley, not by lunatic leftists, but by someone in the elitist arena who is now done with him. This story goes so deep because it actually ties back all the way to Mossad in Israel. I know, right? So much going on here. So let's just get into it because I want you to help me look into this and figure it out because I am concerned. I'm concerned in every way possible. So give me just 1 second, friends and family. How are you guys doing today? Boy, is 2026 popping off to be a quite interesting year. I mean, America did just kidnap a sitting president and his wife of a foreign country, but hey, we'll talk about that another day. All right. 9 of the Minnesota child care centers discussed in Nick Shirley's viral video are now operating as expected, state officials say. What am I talking about? So, 9 of the Minnesota child care centers that were discussed in a viral video prompting allegations of fraud when the state inspectors and investigators showed up and conducted on site checks, they were operating as expected. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, it's because they called everybody, said, "Get your kids here because we're being investigated." And maybe that happened, but it's not going to save him in court because we're not going to be able to prove that. What we can prove is that one of the daycares that Nick Shirley showed, they came out with their cameras. They show you Nick Shirley coming up to their door, shaking it. And before Nick got there, they showed children coming in. After Nick got there, they showed children coming into that daycare. That one daycare alone could bring a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against him for defamation of character. That's what I'm worried about. So we're going to connect the dots between Nick Shirley, Turning Point USA, the Charlie Kirk show, and the Minnesota daycare operators who say Shirley's no kids narrative was misleading. So the agency also released the amount of funding that 9 daycare centers received from Minnesota's Child Care Assistance Program in the fiscal year of 2025. You might want to write this down. Fiscal years don't match our actual calendar. They go from October 1st to the end of September, okay? So Super Kids Daycare received $471,000. Future Leaders Early Learning Center was $3.86 million. Quality Learning Centers, 1.9. Tayo Daycare, 1.9 million. 1.09 million. Minnesota Child Care Center, 2.67 million. Mini Child Care Center, 1.6 million. Sweet Angel Daycare, 1.54 million. And ABC Learning Center. That's the one that came out and said, here's Nick showing up. There are kids here before him, kids here after him. They received 1.04 million. Minnesota Best Child Care Center, 3.4. So according to state officials, the program supports access to child care for 23,000 children and 12,000 working families in Minnesota. The agency said it was made aware on December 19th that Quality Learning Center intended to voluntarily close. When licensing investigators visited the facility 10 days later, they learned it had chosen to remain open. So you can read this. I'm going to link everything for you. On December 30th, the Department of Health and Human Services said it froze child care funding for Minnesota. Citing viral fraud allegation, the department's administration for children and families sends $185 million in child care funds to Minnesota annually. And that goes to state agencies and multiple providers. The state agency said it has until January 9th to provide the Trump administration with a set of verifying information about receipts, so about how they spend their money. So I wanted to start with that. But let me show you this short that I found.
Actual journalist uncovered about Nick Shirley's story. I'll break it down piece by piece.
All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center.
In a now viral video, right-wing YouTuber Nick Shirley claims nearly a dozen daycare centers in Minnesota are taking public funds but not providing a service. He says ABC Learning Center is one of them, knocking on the door in mid-December.
I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Hassan says his employee didn't respond because Shirley was in a group of about 8 people, and his staff were concerned about recent ICE activity.
Let's not forget, the only evidence they had was that they weren't opening the doors and they didn't see any children. Anyone that sends their kids to daycare knows that the front doors are locked, especially during the day. And you don't.
And I did a video for you guys a couple of days ago, and I told you that is true. I held a licensing for a daycare. I was licensed through the state of Louisiana as a director of a child care class A daycare and learning center after school, before school program. We kept our windows tinted. You could not see in. You could pull up and the windows were black. We could see out. You couldn't see in. Also, if you grabbed the door, it wasn't opening. That was 2005. We gave out key fobs to the parents. Now, I need you to put everything you think you know about this Nick Shirley situation aside, and let me show you why I think this young man's fixing to get sued.
Don't see the children from the windows to prevent sketchy people like Nick Shirley from entering.
Is this daycare coming from?
No, we're not coming from.
Hassan showed us security footage from the same day Shirley was here. According to the timestamps in the videos, this woman takes a young child into the center at around 9 a.m. that day, about 3 hours before Shirley arrives at the door closer to the street. Within the hour after Shirley leaves, a woman arrives at the other door with a stroller. A larger family heads inside a few hours later.
So again, Nick Shirley was there for all of 5 minutes, didn't see any kids, and said it was fraud. Even though from that day, clearly, kids were being dropped off.
Tuesday afternoon, WCCO found at least a dozen children at ABC Learning Center, which is licensed with the state. Records show Minnesota officials last visited the daycare in November, noting some corrected and ongoing violations related to day-to-day operations, but no record of fraud.
And this is just one of the daycares that this journalist is going to.
And let me point this out. The year that I ran the daycare, we ended up with like 10 violations. If you have never run a daycare, you don't understand what the violations mean. A daycare can have 90 violations and not be a bad daycare. You legitimately will get a violation if, and I mean this, listen to me. You have to walk the children to the lunchroom. We don't feed them in the classrooms. We provide, at least at my daycare, we had a lunchroom. So I had to have a worker standing at the end of the hallway and a worker at the door of the classroom. And as she walked the children out, we counted them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because you have a child to adult ratio that must be kept to be within the state's allowable child to adult ratio. If they ended up with more children in the lunchroom than there were adults because classes were swapping or whatever, you got a write up. If every outlet, even the ones high enough that children can't get to them, I'm talking like above, open up cabinets and there's an outlet in there so somebody can charge something and close the cabinet. Obviously, a 2 year old can't get to it, but if that outlet is either not plugged in or have a cover over it, you get a hit. If all your records are not correct, like say a parent is behind on vaccines and they didn't bring the note from the doctor saying that, there's a reason the child's behind, the daycare gets a write up. It's petty stuff like that. If there's an ant pile on the playground that you accidentally missed, you get a write up. If when they go in to check the canned food, they find one thing with an expiration date, you get a write up. If there is a pen left on the counter and the kids are playing and the teacher's working with someone and she accidentally sets her pen down on the table and walks to another area, you get a write up because that pen can become a deadly weapon. So you've got to look carefully when they say, well, this daycare had 100 write ups. What were they? Were they because the kids weren't being watched? Hands weren't being washed? Food wasn't being provided? Or was it something simple like the paperwork wasn't completely correct? Because if you've got 200 kids in the daycare and you miss one piece of paper that the state added in that year, or all of your teachers didn't get all their continuing ed hours in, and you don't have the certificates correctly in their files, those are write ups.
Nick Shirley claimed we're committing fraud. How's he going to explain this one? Hey, Nick Shirley.
So that's a great start right there. One of the daycares shows obviously that kids came before and after Nick Shirley on the same day. That's just one of them. Nick Shirley is a YouTuber who describes himself as an independent journalist. In late December 2025, he posted a 42-minute Minnesota investigation video claiming he found subsidized daycare centers that appeared empty, suggesting major fraud. His reporting blew up fast. Axios describes him as a MAGA-friendly YouTuber whose videos can spark official attention, noting he also spoke at a White House roundtable in October 2025. But here's the key, and I do mean this. This is the key. Whatever someone calls themselves, independent citizen journalists, activists, whatever, the network that amplifies them matters because it shapes reach, credibility, and backlash. Who amplified this video? Elon Musk, something like 10 times in one day. J.D. Vance, Trump's son. But there's something here, friends and family. So make sure you hit the like button. If you can, hype it, hype it. If not, please share this video because people need to realize something's fixing to happen to this kid and I'm worried about him.
So we need to talk about Nick Shirley, who did the investigative piece on the fraud in Minnesota. If you guys have been paying attention to his post interviews, he looks upset. He looks nervous. Have you noticed it? I know that you have. And I suspect it's because some close to him have already warned him on what I'm going to share with you now. My career was in risk management, so I'm very much aware of lawsuits and all those sorts of fun things. And Nick may get sued. He may get sued by a lot of people, and he may get sued for a lot of money. He will be sued more than likely for defamation and libel. When you make a video and you make statements of fact that are actually false statements presented as fact, that's grounds for defamation. When you willfully create this kind of content with actual malice, meaning you communicate that a learning center is getting paid millions of dollars, but there's no children there when it's a business that closed down a few years prior. when you allege that another learning center has no children in it, and probably the sign on the door that he blotted out said not open until 2 p.m. because it's an afternoon evening daycare center. That's creating content with actual malice.
And I haven't not, believe it or not, I did not watch his 42-minute video. But I saw somebody clip something, and in one part, he shows black, and I guess they're supposed to be Samoan people in cars waving money, like it was like a screenshot or something. What he's trying to say is that these people steal. Shirley's claim that certain daycares weren't caring for children because none could be seen entering or exiting is where the problem's going to come in. Washington Post reported daycare operators said Shirley's conclusions were undercut by state records and disputed by owners. Some say he came when the facility was closed. Others say he filmed outside of their actual operating hours or at an entrance parents didn't use in the winter. One director told the Post that in winter, most parents use a back entrance, while Shirley appeared at the front and only stayed a few minutes. The CBS Minnesota reported on one center, the ABC Learning Center, that had security footage from December 16th, 2025, showing people dropping off children throughout the day, and that WCCO found more than a dozen children at the daycare while reporting on it. CBS director reported the director said Shirley arrived around noon and that the staff would not let him in because they don't allow strangers into active daycares, especially with a group present, some masked amid ICE related fears. Now, let me make this point very clear. You are not allowed into a daycare with cameras. The liability on the end of the daycare is tremendous. This is in 2005. I had so many forms for parents to sign. I had to have a media form saying that if we were going to advertise or put something out in the local newspaper, or a parent wanted to come in and take pictures of their child celebrating their birthday, was it okay for their child to be photographed? I had to have that permission. And if I made a mistake and allowed someone to photograph a child whose parents said, no, I do not want my child's picture taken, then I was the one that carried that. The daycare could be sued, you guys.
And people can sue you for punitive damages as well as the reputational and financial damages. And a jury has to contemplate the damages, the reputational damage of a video that has now been seen over 120 million times. And he's going to be put on the stand if he is sued. And he's going to have to cough up his source.
Now, this is where it gets interesting because you heard what she just said. This what makes me really worried about this kid. They'll put him on the stand and say, who is your source? Well, he's going to say it's David, the white guy. You guys, his source comes from the Minnesota GOP. I showed you that the other day. One of the Republican GOP in the Minnesota caucus came out and said, I contacted Nick Shirley and told him about this. And then he met up with David. But I think that it's deeper because Israel is claiming that they broke this story, that it was their office. And we're going to get into that. But if the daycare can argue this, they'll win. Shirley made a factual claim or implied fact that they were purposefully defrauding the American people. If that claim is false, if that claim was published and then amplified and it caused harm, lost funds, threats, lost businesses, he's going to get sued. Now, I'm going to show you proof that daycares are being threatened. I'm fixing to show you proof that there are thousands of people running around looking up daycare addresses and showing up at places trying to get in. Now, do I blame them? No. Am I sick of the fraud? Yes. Guys, I have to pay taxes every flipping year, man. I'm sick of it. But there is a fine, fine line between what Nick Shirley did and defamation. He sensationalized something without really investigating something. If he was going to put this video out without getting sued, he should have set up cameras, the front and back entrance, and recorded everything for a week. And then said, hey, you have nobody in here. And then proven that the state paid for kids to be there on days that they weren't actually there. I know it sounds like a lot. It's not near as much fun. It's not near as sensational, but something's wrong here. And I think they're setting this kid up to take a huge fall. And the reporting Nick Shirley has done already contains the building blocks of a lawsuit. The narrative: operators reported harassment and threats after the video went out, plus disputes about timing and entrances. If the topic is a matter of public concern, taxpayer funded programs, then Minnesota defamation rules can be more protective of speech, especially around the damages. So that may help him a little bit. If a daycare can show Shirley intentionally interfered with their relationship, their funding, and they can. President Trump just stopped funding to the entire program. Clients, vendors, landlords, by publishing claims that were false, they may explore something called tortious interference theories, which is contract or prospective advantage. And Minnesota recognizes these claims in certain contexts. So that's really, really bad. This is closely related to defamation, but focused on harm to a business's economic interest from false statements about the business or its services. And it's called trade libel, business disparagement. Then there's something called privacy claims. Some people throw around false light, but Minnesota courts historically have been wary of recognizing false light as a separate tort because of free speech concerns. Privacy torts that are recognized include intrusion, appropriation, and publication of private facts in some context. The big defenses Nick Shirley would raise: if lawsuits happen, Nick's side would likely argue truth, right? Substantial truth. And if any fraud is later proven at any of the locations, he'll argue the core of the message was true, if even some of his videoing or comments were messy or sloppy or defamation. He'll try to say it was just his opinion. He'll claim that he was expressing suspicion and not provable facts. But where he's going to get caught up is where they hold all their facts and say, we'll give you $100,000 if you can prove us wrong.
To prove that he did an accurate job in relaying facts. And his source is a private citizen, an old white MAGA sycophant. That was his source. So I think he's extremely nervous right now. And I doubt that this young punk has any insurance. I don't know that he has an LLC in which he created this video and published it on his YouTube channel, where the
I don't know that either. Does anybody know if he has an LLC?
insurance company will provide his legal defense costs and pay out any settlement? Chances are he doesn't. So he's going to be reaching into his own pocket to defend himself. And there will be multiple lawsuits because there are multiple individuals who are suffering damage from this. Now, this is what happens when you play investigative journalist and you aren't an actual journalist. This is what happens when you have an agenda to target certain people. You're now acting with bias, and you're willing to cross the lines of fact versus fabrication in order to win in the game that you are trying to play. So,
And now we're seeing hundreds of people pulling the Nick Shirley, running around to daycares, right? Let me look it up for you guys. So we can launch precision airstrikes, capture Maduro, and transport him out of his country within minutes, but we can't put a single deep state Democrat in prison. All right. So this young man, and I did this a couple of months ago after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I confronted Nick Shirley about his lies in Ukraine. He pretended there was no war. He said his reporting was satire. JD Vance now calls him America's best journalist. You should listen to this kid.
Kyiv. He said what he was doing. Nick Shirley came to Ukraine and made this video. And I'm talking about this right now because the vice president has literally just said that this guy is the best journalist in the world. But that doesn't quite add up, because when I confronted Nick about what he did here in Kyiv, he said what he was doing wasn't journalism, it was satire. And his entire reporting started to fall apart. Look at this. So here's the caption you put up. $175 billion goes a long way. This is the capital of Ukraine. What was the idea of the original tweet?
To show that what is happening in Ukraine, and to show that people are still living a somewhat normal life in certain areas of, such as Kyiv.
Well, I think what you were doing is to try and show that there maybe isn't a war in Ukraine. You were basically trying to ride this sort of Tim Pool grifter type wave, saying, pulling silly faces, smirking at the people of this country, saying, this is where your tax dollars are going. You cannot avoid that. That's what you were doing. Why can't you admit that?
Because I do not believe by making satire on the internet commits a crime by any means. And
okay, so
going back.
This is a huge revelation. So you were actually doing satire
in that post.
So it was satire.
Is there anything wrong with satire?
Okay, so you're telling me now that this was a joke and it's satire and this wasn't your actual reporting. This wasn't you being a journalist.
What do you mean?
Well, you were being satirical, right? You were joking. You're saying that this tweet was satire. The original report that you put out on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter was satire.
That was the first video I put out, and if you continue to follow me and watch the videos that will be coming out, you will very much see.
No, I've seen the backtracking, but why didn't you make it clear that it was satire?
Isn't that very obvious that it's clear that it's satire?
And just to recap on what Nick actually did here, he came to the Capitol, he pointed at some luxury cars, some cafes, people living their normal lives, and insinuated that there's no war, or that it's exaggerated, or that your American tax dollars are going on people's luxury cars in this country. And when this video went viral, I contacted his fixers. I found the exact people that brought him into this country, and they told me they showed him a bombed children's hospital. They took him to various aftermaths of missile strikes, of missile attacks, and he decided not to include it in any of his TikToks, in any of his reporting in Ukraine, because Nick came to Ukraine to make propaganda, to be provocative, to be a MAGA influencer. And that's fine. There's plenty of people like that on YouTube and TikTok. But when you come to a country where people are being bombed every single day, there are air raid sirens going off as I'm speaking right now, then it crosses a line. And Nick has a very specific talent. He shows up somewhere, films a couple of streets, and announces he's cracked the whole story. No data, no depth, just vibes. And then we jump to Minneapolis. It's the same tactic. Drop in, film selectively, inflame, provoke, declare victory, go viral, get retweets from the president. And I've just seen this clip of Nick being confronted by CNN.
The point of it is not whether or not I came at the right time of their operation hours. The point is that blacked out doors, they can't give you any information. You call that number, no one answers.
Every daycare is locked.
It is.
Their doors are locked.
And so, okay, you bring up a fair point.
And it's pretty much exactly the same as my interview with him back.
He literally said, it doesn't matter what time I come. But he's claiming there are no children in these daycares. So yes, it really does matter what time you flip and show up.
Here in Ukraine. And the reason I confronted Nick is because I know how a lot of these people work, how they think. When I was very young, I had right-wing views and surrounded myself with people just like Nick. And I saw exactly how they operate and exactly the kind of tactics they use. It's how I confronted Phidias, and it's why I confronted Nick. But just to give you a full overview of how these people operate and to understand the tactics, it's basically provocation over accuracy, it's outrage over evidence, it's selective framing, weaponizing confusion, and then when you're challenged, claiming persecution, which is exactly what Nick did. When I confronted him, he said I was putting his family at risk.
For you to say that is very dangerous for my life and for the life of my family.
I think the people that are actually in danger right now, the people whose lives are in danger, are the people in this country, from the Russians who are sharing your video. So good luck with that. So yeah, while Nick's trending right now for being the best journalist in the world, I think it's pretty important to look back at his roots and remember what he did here in Ukraine. But yeah, if you want to watch the full confrontation, I'll leave a link to it under this video.
Yeah, guys, journalism doesn't mean what it used to anymore. James came with the receipts. Nick is a plant. Right? It says Nick Shirley, a self-proclaimed YouTube reporter, films Palestinian solidarity protests to portray participants as ignorant scammers, clueless about their cause, amplifies hateful Israeli voices, and smears activists. I visited the Israel-Gaza border with the last mayor of Gaza. We stood where Hamas launched its attacks. I told y'all it was all paid for. It was sponsored. Nick Shirley went to Israel in November 2024. It was sponsored by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The trip aimed to have truth-seeking influencers document the situation in the country and share their findings with their audiences. This is the first proof that I have that it was a paid-for trip to Israel. Now, I support Israel, love Israel. I love Jesus. But this is out of control. I mean, you've got to understand, Nick Shirley is a Mormon. He's not a Christian. It's two different things. It feels like there's a massive spiritual awakening happening right now. People are realizing we've been lied to about everything. Like literally everything. Change is coming. Get yourself a conspiracy theorist friend, folks, because you're going to need one to understand what's about to happen. Now, this is where I got upset this morning. Look, my parents came over. My dad wrote a book at 84. He's amazing, about his childhood. And I was helping him put it up as an ebook on Kindle through Amazon. I was learning new skills today. Come on, Jesus. And I was sowing time and knowledge into my father, because you reap what you sow. And I'm talking to my parents, and because we love each other, we left the conversation laughing. But I literally said, look, when Donald Trump arrests somebody, some dirty Democrat or some shadow government person, I will applaud him arresting a sovereign country's leader and his wife, right? And my dad's like, well, they really can't do that. I said, well, they really can't go into a foreign country and arrest people like that either, Daddy. The FBI can, in fact, arrest state governors for misuse of federal funds. So when, again, I see Donald Trump arrest Tim Walz, I'll applaud him from arresting someone else. This bothered me a little because I heard somebody talking about the Ark of Trump. And I'm like, what is that? What is the Ark of Trump? Look at what's on top of it. You see this? You see this symbol? Anybody want to guess what that actually is? This symbol right here. It's the statue of Lucifer rising, the morning star. It's Venus, you guys. Just chalk that up to everything else we're seeing. The Israeli media is now reporting that Mossad was the first to uncover the Somalian daycare fraud in Minnesota. Coincidentally, Israel just recognized Somaliland with plans to build a new military base and relocate Palestinians there. Nick Shirley was fed this slop. Nick Shirley will fall for this.
So it turns out One of the most viral stories of 2025 about the Somali daycare fraud in Minnesota ends up being a complete psyop. Because evidently, Israeli reporters are now asserting that Mossad and Israeli intelligence, not U.S. authorities, were responsible for exposing the Somalian-ran Minnesota fraud operations.
How is the Israeli Mossad related to the recent corruption that was discovered in Minnesota? You're not going to believe it, but there actually is a substantial connection, and it runs through the Israeli Prime Minister office. I'll start from the end. Israel just established relationships with Somaliland, which is not...
And by the way, who spent Christmas and New Year's Eve with Donald Trump? The Ukrainian president and Netanyahu.
Somalia.
And what does that mean? Let's take a listen.
Does anyone know what Somaliland is, really? Said U.S. President Donald Trump after Israel became the first country in the world to recognize the self-proclaimed republic in Eastern Africa. Somaliland is a small territory in the Horn of Africa that broke off from Somalia in 1991. So why does Somaliland even matter? It sits on the Gulf of Aden, one of the world's most important shipping routes. There's also a Gaza-related angle. Earlier this year, it was reported that the US and Israel have explored Somaliland as a potential destination for displaced Palestinians from Gaza.
And I did read that to you guys. That is 100% true.
And bingo, that is why we've been hearing so much about Somalian fraud in Minnesota, because it had already been reported weeks before by the U.S. attorney that fraud in Minnesota exceeded $9 billion. $9 billion, that's a whole lot of fraud compared to, what was it? Nick Shirley talked about $110 million, $9 billion. We're talking about a small fraction, but focusing specifically on the Somali community. And then you have the amplification of this story, which isn't necessarily organic, right? You have people like Elon Musk, Vice President J.D. Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, all amplifying this story. I'm not discounting that the fraud exists within the Somali community, but is the focus, is the amplification making us feel a certain way, or trying to make us feel a certain way about the Somali community? That's the question. Now, according to Somali intelligence, Somaliland has accepted 3 Israeli conditions in exchange for Israeli recognition. 1 is the resettlement of Palestinians. 2, the establishment of an Israeli military base on the coast of the Gulf of Aden, and Somaliland joining the Abraham Accords.
And there you go. This whole thing is a spiritual battle. Somebody fed Nick Shirley a ton of crap, and they knew he would do it. He knew that if people came after him and said, hey, this is not 100% true. This has been going on from 2014. You know, I told you guys about the Filipino nurses, the fraud going on there. 1 nursing certificate, 10 nurses, or this 1 certificate working in 10 different places in the U.S. You've got CDL fraud going on left and right. I mean, fraud is everywhere. But somehow the only focus of MAGA right now is Minnesota, Somalia.
Well, isn't that a lovely and convenient development for the state of Israel, that they get somewhere to dump the Palestinians? They also gain a critical and strategic military base, and they create an ally in the region that did not exist before. So maybe they get a resident independent journalist who maybe isn't so independent, if you read what this story is all about, to do a story that says Somalians bad.
I'm just saying, you guys. I know some people didn't turn me off. They're like, oh, I can't believe you changed so much. What? I woke up? I woke up after the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now you guys know why some of us say things like alleged, and why I bring receipts like I do for every video, so I don't end up getting sued. And I'm going to talk about this in a whole nother video, but I want to talk about how all of these South African tech bros, you know, there's a whole lot of them, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and then their dads are all connected back to Germany. I'm just saying. Let me see. Oh, yeah, this one's good.
And then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action.
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech and then there's hate speech.
No, free speech is any speech. America, you got to get a backbone, bruh. Either you have the right to bring up something and talk about something, or you don't. Because, see, that's how Minnesota got away with the feeding America nonsense. Because when they came up and said, look, it looks like fraud here, the white woman said, oh, you're being racist toward the Samoans. All right, it's time to hear Nick Shirley in his own voice. Because, and this is why, if new evidence starts coming out that Nick Shirley ignored obvious evidence that kids were actually in these daycares, or that he selectively edited his content to create a false impression, like putting in pictures of Black people with money, or he did not actually verify hours, entrances, or refused to correct them after being shown footage and proof, if in his videos and after his videos, he continues to actually say there were no kids at any of these locations, that kind of pattern is reckless. And CBS's reporting about security footage and kids present is exactly the kind of things a lawyer will point to when they argue that a creator's narrative was intentionally misleading. So let's start with this. Where to have it at? Yeah. Charlie Kirk and Nick Shirley. I did a short about this other day. Excuse me, guys. Make sure you're still subscribed, please. Did a short about this the other day saying Nick Shirley was the last person to do a video with Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated. He talked to him the night before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. They text on the phone. And this woman comes on. She goes, liar, liar, prove it. Of course, I blocked her because I simply don't have time for that. Guys, I don't do this to get rich. I do this because honest to God, I want the truth to come out. I'm tired of being manipulated.
Make things political about money, for instance, or don't get mad at people for making money. Like, that's why America is the greatest country in the world, is because of capitalism. And we had 250 years to do it. All these other countries had thousands of years to do it, but they didn't do it. That's why we have to protect what's ours.
No question about. By the way, what was your relationship like with Charlie?
He texted me the day before he got shot.
Stop it.
Yeah, like he invited me on his show. I was actually the last guest to ever go on Charlie Kirk's show before he got shot.
Are you kidding me?
Okay, so who is a liar? Not Samantha.
Yeah.
You were the last guest to go on Charlie's show before he got shot and killed?
Yeah, it was like an hour before he got shot.
Oh, yeah, that's a coincidence. Oh, wait, Erica Kirk told me that there are no coincidences. When she stood in that line in Israel and looked back and saw that good-looking brown-haired man, and her mama said, go talk to him.
Rob, did you know this?
No idea.
I did not know this.
I did.
And so I wasn't like personal friends with Charlie, but like that's why it hit me so hard. Him dying. One, he texted me the night before, and then I was literally the last guest to go on his show.
Wow.
Wow. Did you guys know that the CIA and the FBI actually recruit Mormons, the magical underwear kids, for a purpose? Because they are trained into obedience at a young age. Any LDS, they're rebranding, or Mormons out there have never Googled their own religion. They're told not to. Nick Shirley was featured by Turning Point USA at America First through a frontline interview. He appeared on the Charlie Kirk show in an episode focused on the Minnesota claims. The Minnesota daycare operators and major outlets dispute the no kids framing, citing hours, entrances, and state records, and local reporting reference security footage showing that during the same day he said there were no kids, there were actually children. That kind of dispute is exactly how you end up with defamation and business interference threats. And also exactly the kind of case where they anti-slap fights can erupt early. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, Nick Shirley is in bed with Turning Point USA, which I think a lot of us, even if we support Israel, we know that right now there's this Kabbalah movement in our elite, in our government, and anything that is not of God is of Satan. So that's simple enough to figure out.
Wow. And what was the conversation about the last day you were on with Charlie?
Well, he just invited me on a show, and then because he was going to do the debate, it was his co-host Andrew who's hosting the show. Yeah,
that's right. Because
I'm from Utah too, and what's strange about me is I was supposed to be at that event, and I was going to go do a live stream, and I was even going to reach out to Turning Point to like be a part of it because I'm well known in Utah, and
again, let me make this point. Right now, the Mormon Church has a PR movement going on. Now, I've done a lot of deep dives into the Mormon Church and the connection there with Orem, Utah, Deseret, all the nastiest things the Mormon Church has done. But their biggest move right now is influencers. In fact, you've got a lot of them. Glenn Beck is one of them. You've got Mormons, you've got the Mormon housewives on TV, you've got most of the Dancing with Stars are Mormons. In fact, if you create content for social media, you know how important hashtags are. If you hashtag something Mormon or any word related with the Mormon Church, you get paid more money. If that content is good with the Mormon Church, they pay tremendous amounts of money because they force their people to tithe. See, I tithe because the Bible tells me God will rebuke the devourer on my behalf. He tithes because the Mormon Church tells him he has to.
For some reason, I decided to go back to New York. Or else I would have been, who knows how close I would have been up on that stage, or if I was just in the crowd. But I would.
Right? I mean, he could have been right there when Charlie was, quote unquote, allegedly killed, but all of a sudden he changes his mind. I wonder if the other Mormon that is also from Utah that lives in Arizona, that's Charlie's best friend, warned him off.
Would have been live streaming it.
You would have been live streaming it if you were there.
Wow. He acts so surprised.
Wow.
Wow.
Who was Charlie to you?
I mean, just so shocked, right? So shocked. Let's go forward. This guy, I don't even know who he is. He also brags PBD or whatever on the Mormon Church. Says, wow, that's a good edge for you. Yeah, because they promote you. They fund you so you can make money for them. The Mormon Church is just a big Freemasonry thing, guys. Don't get it mixed up. It's not spiritual, it's political.
Because if you're doing part two, you were just there yesterday. Because I saw the first one, there wasn't much snow. The second one, there was more snow. When you went there, it seemed like it was colder. And then now you're having a hard time even going in the streets without security because people coming after you.
Well, now people are going to think I'm a Fed after I tweet this, so we'll see what happens. All right. Dear
Ha ha ha. People are going to think I'm a Fed.
Mr. President, real Donald Trump and AG Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, how can I help?
How can I help? Very open-ended. Very open.
Yeah, that's so organic. That's so organic. And Pam Bondi is such an amazing AG, right? I mean, they have done such a great job with the Epstein files. Wait a second. Wasn't the Epstein files supposed to come out? Wait. Didn't Charlie Kirk come out just like a month before he was assassinated saying, President Trump, you're losing your base? We, the people that put you into power, we want the truth. We want the Epstein files. Guys, we can't release the Epstein files, but we can strike Venezuela in the middle of the night, disrupt international air flights all over the world, go in with a military strike team, grab their president and his wife in the middle of the night and extradite them to the United States. But we cannot release the Epstein files. Yeah, I'm buying that.
Ended. I'm just curious. Because what makes your there it is. What makes your approach different is you're a good guy who's curious, who wants America to be better. Let me go to this so I can retweet it.
Everybody watching, you all better go retweet that. I don't want people to think I'm a Fed.
Well, the good news is now you're being there's documentation. Oh, okay, it's already got a bunch of retweets. Okay, good. And I just retweeted it as well. Perfect. Let's see if they respond. I think they will. I think the way the president works, sometimes he gets ahead of it. Sometimes he has his team. He can't be everywhere at the same time. But I have a feeling.
But he can be in Venezuela stealing a president and his wife in the middle of the night.
Ukraine this week.
Say that again.
He's been dealing a lot with
Ukraine. He's been dealing with a lot of stuff. But to me,
yeah, and don't forget, Nick Shirley really did lie about Ukraine. He really did insinuate that American tax dollars were going there to make people rich. And I'm not saying fraud didn't happen there too. Guys, you have got to be able to compartmentalize how you feel and look at facts.
On Christmas Day, he did what? On Christmas Day, he went after Nigeria, right? And everyone's like, wait a minute, Christmas Day, Nigeria? I think this is something where everybody, I mean, how many tweets has Elon, can you go on Elon Musk's tweet? How many of Musk's tweet are just about this topic? How many of Musk's tweet since December 26th that you posted this, how many times has he retweeted a video of somebody that retweeted about you or this topic?
A lot.
Okay, so let's just count this. Let's just count this, okay?
A lot, right? But you guys really do trust Elon? Anybody? I used to. I thought Doge was a good thing, but now looking back, I'm like, maybe not so much.
Is the most viewed video by anybody by the name who's not Mr. Beast that's ever been on the internet in a long form.
Listen to that closely.
Something specifically to be able to keep the spin rolling. And so that's what we're talking about.
So how can people help?
It out?
Yeah, and then calls racist for calling it out. Well, look, when is your next clip going to come out?
Yeah, so I got to get home to be able to make it.
Okay, you got to go home and edit.
Yeah, but it will be people will be so shocked by what we discovered because it's not, because with all these daycares, healthcare, and childcare, there's a whole aspect that keeps the whole entire thing running. And that's what we're going to be exposing this next one.
I love it. I love it.
Because they know where they can get the money from because they're using welfare money. So they have all these systems, but they need something specifically to be able to keep the spin rolling. And so that's
what they're not telling you is that Obamacare opened up for this kind of crap to happen. I keep saying it. Obamacare has to go. But, Trump was supposed to do that too.
What we're talking about.
So how can people help? If people are watching right now, they're like, Nick, we love your work. How can we help? How can they help?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, obviously, is to watch, subscribe, and share. Follow wherever you see it. If you would like to support monetarily or financially, you can donate. I have tips on my X, or you could just go and cop and get yourself a quality Leering hoodie. But yeah, for me, the most important thing is for people to be watching and sharing. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, this video that I created is the most viewed video by anybody by the name who's not Mr. Beast that's ever been on the internet in a long form content. There's been clips.
Okay. Now, I showed you guys yesterday that Mr. Beast, his family is involved in the CIA also. And there's a lot of fraud, mismanagement, and allegations coming out about Mr. Beast. Friends and family of the internet. There are millions and millions of content creators around the world. The possibility that your video will go viral are slim to none. I had a video when I made the video, Where Are the Children, about Maui, and it got 300,000 views, and I only had 4,000 subscribers at the time and no teeth, which was shocking in itself that people would even watch it. And that sent me to Maui. But when I got to Maui, like everybody else, I was believing all these rumors. And then as I began to actually investigate, I realized that they did not pull up in school buses and steal 2,200 children and take them off the island. And you know what happened? People got mad. People don't actually want the truth. They like the sensationalism. Yes, fraud is happening in America. Do you guys realize that our president right now has forgiven like 8 different people that equals something like $200 million in fraud that were convicted under Joe Biden? Yes, they actually did these crimes. And Trump forgave them, said you don't owe restitution to whom you stole from, including the federal government. It's not that he forgave their crimes or cleaned their records, is that he removed them having to pay back what they stole. Now, all of them just happen to be white. If Nick Shirley wanted to honestly investigate fraud in America, you start top down. Why did he start in Minnesota again? Because Israel told him to.
That have gone 100 million views here and there. There's never been a 42-minute expose of widespread fraud here in the United States that's received over 100 million views.
And I hope you continue at the highest level. I applaud your courage. You came here with your brother. It's good to have him here.
Yeah, and it's just so funny that now all of a sudden, he's afraid, he's scared, right? They're coming after him. That's what he said, and they may very well be.
I mean, you can't make money, and if you can't make money, you can't do what you can't do it. And so you literally could not use Trump's name in a thumbnail or in a title and receive compensation for your work on YouTube.
That's not true. I've been making videos since 2022, and you can definitely monetize with Trump's name in a video. However, the YouTube algorithm will work against you.
And then after that, I ended up going on to a 2-year mission for my church, and I made a plan on my mission, exactly how I wanted to come back, what kind of videos I wanted to do.
Where was the mission?
In Chile, Santiago.
And you said mission with the church?
Yes.
Which church?
I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.
Let me tell you, man, that is such a massive edge.
Such a massive edge, because they train you guys to do what you're told to do. Yeah.
Massive edge. So, they would send, I work with a lot of folks from the LDS, stake presidents, a lot of guys. So I read all the Gordon B. Hinckley, John Huntsman, all these major names. The Cleon Skousen, I think, is also a LDS author. He wrote a book called Naked Communist. He was a former 15-year CIA, and the FBI and the CIA would come and try to learn from Mormons on how they would teach a language for somebody that would go on a mission for 3 weeks, or within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're learning the language. How much did you going on that mission make you fearless to be able to do the journalist?
Yeah. I don't know if this guy claims to be a Christian. Be careful with him if he's bragging about the Mormons. This is the apostasy of the church. This is the ecumenical movement. Please do not forget to purchase your book, Growing Under a Poison Sky. Folks, look, I used to support Nick Shirley. If you go back a year ago, I actually did a couple of his videos and promoted him. People are like, I've never heard of this guy. I'm like, yeah, but he's really, he's a pretty good kid. Wow. When you realize the unnatural connections between these people, that's not normal. It isn't. It is absolutely not normal. What I'm concerned about right now is if they were willing to get rid of Charlie Kirk, they will not hesitate to get rid of this kid. When there's this much money on the line, they're not just going to let it lie. Guys, Minnesota daycares have been investigated since 2014. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. So why did Trump stop the funding now? He knew about it in his first go round. Why? There's something here we're missing, and it's got to do with Somaliland and Israel. Probably because they're trying to force Somaliland into accepting something by shutting off the money to it. Or they're trying to stop the money directly into the hands of the brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood, which, by the way, again, check it. Trump never declared the Muslim Brotherhood an actual terrorist group. He claimed and declared them a terrorist group, international terrorist group, but not here in America. He won't do it. See, if he declares them a national terrorist group like he did Antifa, it gives the federal government a lot more leadway in arresting them. But for some reason, he just won't do it. He declared Antifa more dangerous than the Muslim Brotherhood that has now siphoned over $15 billion into Somalia through Minnesota and I'm sure multiple other states. So there's something here. There's something so big here, and it's a global move. Remember yesterday when I showed you every 250 years, there is a great reset. America becomes 250 years old in 2026. 2030 is the 250 mark for the next reset. So sometime between 2026 and 2030, all hell's going to break loose. And baby, if you aren't right with Jesus, I highly encourage you get filled with the Spirit. You get your prayer language. Stop aligning yourself with people because you like them. Align yourself with people who are not an echo chamber of what you listen to every day. Hear people, even if you don't like their politics, you don't like their religion. It doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing when they research and bring you evidence, factually based reporting. Now, I already know the comments I'm going to get. Please leave this little boy alone. He's so humble. You're being played. This is the biggest psychological psyop in 2026. And we've only been in this month 3 flipping days. And they're already starting with their crap. The only reason this story went out is because Elon, Pam Bondi, and JD Vance made it. And you know who picked it up and ate it up without looking up anything, without checking anything, was MAGA. And again, what does MAGA mean? Worshippers of the sun god. It means asleep. It means magician. It means fool. That's what it means. And this is what they're talking about. Don't fall for stories if you aren't going to put the time in to double, triple check that it's actually legitimate. This kid, when I tell y'all that these people are going to sue him, especially the ABC learning care that can prove that somebody walked in that door with kids earlier and kids came afterwards. Yeah. No, I'm not saying there's not some fraud there. I'm not stupid. What I'm saying is they set him up to fall and he walked right into it. God, all I pray is that God protects me from that. And this kid, I pray that he gets out of the Mormon church. And now you've got people online saying that his parents weren't involved in fraud. It was just their company just happened to go bankrupt. That is a lie. There was fraud charges there. I can't find all of it, but I'm going to keep digging because it said fraud. It said, how was it worded? Bankruptcy and fraud. I love you guys. We can't align ourselves with anybody but Jesus. That's it. That's all. And I know it's disappointing, but they realized that we weren't going to believe, people on, we don't believe Fox. Don't believe everything you see on Fox, please. They're owned by the same people that own CNN. So I've gotten to where I don't really believe any of it. I just listen and I pattern recognize. And when I look at something and I go, that doesn't make sense to me. How did this story blow up so big when it's been around since 2014? Then I started asking why. And when you're honest with yourself, when you tell God, please, God, just show me the truth, He really will. But you have to put aside what other weird stuff you have in your head. So I love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you find out. And pray for this kid. Pray he truly gets saved by Jesus because they're going to come after him, you guys. And it's not going to be pretty.